Right. Hello, Facebook. It's Jen Grace here, founder and CEO of Publish Your Purpose Press. And I'm here for the 29th video of the NaNoWriMo series, which has been giving you tips and tricks on how to survive the month of November in your very aggressive goal of trying to get 50,000 words on paper in the month of November. So today I have another awesome guest, someone who is part of our current Authors Academy and is the author of the upcoming book called Rainbow Roots. I have Jane with me today. How are you, Jane?
Hi, Jen. I'm doing well.
I'm so excited to have you here. Before we get into your tip, which I am so excited to share with people, can you share a little bit about your book and, when, where you are in the process and all that kind of fun stuff?
Sure. My book is the product of workshops that we've done several years in the D&I community. It all started, my kids are now 20, they were 13, so I guess it was 7 years ago. We were at a LGBT conference, and my kids were there as volunteers, and they were supposed to, or they were going to get to watch a featured panel of adult children of LGBT families and hear what their experience was like. Well, at the last minute, we were in Baltimore, Hurricane Sandy hit. They couldn't find the featured panelists, so they asked my kids at the last minute if they would take the stage as the featured panelists, and they did, and that started several years of their doing workshops speaking about what it's like to be a teenager with not so straight families. Mm-hmm. They connected over the years in multiple different cities, companies, conferences, and over the years we discovered there were a handful of questions that people always asked. And this book is a combination of those questions, what happened during those workshops, but it goes deeper and it tells the backstories on these amazing teenagers that we met all over the country. Mm-hmm. Kind of help enriches why their questions were what they were. Their answers were what they were. And then the book further goes into the actual research on these particular issues. And it helps you understand whether these particular teenagers' experiences were typical or what some of the other experiences were. And the book's called Rainbow Roots. And it's the straight talk from teens about having not so straight families.
I love that. So for those who might be watching and they don't know the term D&I, just to throw it out there, it's diversity and inclusion. It's just our kind of shorthand. I feel like you and I live in that world, and we certainly do a lot of books that have a D&I component to them. But so for those watching. Okay. So you are in our current Authors Academy. We have been working together for the last couple of months. We've known each other for what feels like an eternity at this point. So what are you working on right now? And how are you working on your book? Because I know that you are like head down, like really getting a lot of your writing done, like especially like in this exact moment right now. So what is some kind of tip that you can share with those who are watching that's been working really well for you?
I'm a very linear person. I had this wonderful outline from start to finish on how this should flow and what topics I should cover. But it was really difficult for me, if I hit a stopping point at chapter 1 or chapter 2 at a particular point, I would get hung up there and I would spin on it and I would have trouble moving forward. And I was very disciplined. I would set a certain amount of time aside every day where I'd sit down and write. Well, sometimes that time of day is not when the creative juices are flowing. Mm-hmm. And I think what really helped me break out of this difficulty, basically what really started the words flowing, is when I let go of the linear pattern. I started using a software program called Scrivener, which was really helpful. It was tough to use in the beginning because it was not my style. But essentially, I have now on my phone a notes program. I have a notepad on my toilet in my shower. I have a notepad by my bed where I sleep and in the kitchen. And now anytime an idea hits me that is relevant to this book or something I want to expand on, I capture it. I capture it in a note. I capture it in a notebook. And then I drop it into Scrivener. And I've let go of this notion of trying to work through this from start to finish. If I get the creative juices flowing about something that may appear in chapter 9, I sit down and I write that. And I write and I write and I write. And the words just come and it flows. And you get out thousands of words. And then you hit that point of, okay, I don't know where I'm going next, but that's okay. Bit by bit, it all comes together. And grabbing those creative moments and diving into those ideas when they hit you has been the most helpful for me.
And did you go into the process with an expectation that you should be writing your book in a very linear way, where you have to start with chapter 1 and then move to chapter 2, et cetera? Like, where did this kind of revelation come of, I need to just focus where I'm most inspired right now?
That's a really good question. I think, I started with an outline, and I started with these questions that we dealt with over the years in these workshops. And to a degree, there was a logical flow to them, starting out with more basic general information and getting more specific. And a lot of the stories that are told in the book, especially the backstories on these amazing young people, follow a chronological order. Mm-hmm. But although we tell the story chronologically, sometimes some of the greatest points to tell about these stories are the emotional impacts that they had on the kids, or the long-term effect, or how it affected their answer to this particular question. And I would get hung up on the chronological part, but be chomping at the bit to get to this other meaningful part. And finally, Scrivener, I think, is what really helped, because Scrivener forced me to break apart each of these ideas separately so that you can rearrange them and place them elsewhere. And by breaking them apart, it allowed me to focus. It's like, as I was breaking them apart, I'm like, oh, I forgot to say this about this particular point. And I would just start writing. Mm-hmm. And that just continued. I would meet somebody on the street, or I'd hear something on the radio, or somebody'd say something on Facebook, and I'd be like, oh, they don't understand this, but they'll understand it once they read chapter 7. And I would dive in and explain it. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know what broke me out of it. I think the process of breaking things up with Scrivener helped me start to see the book's pieces, and really pieces, not just chapter by chapter, but paragraph by paragraph, or idea by idea.
Yeah. And I think, so for those wwho are watching, they have no idea what we're saying when we're saying Scrivener. It's a writing program that's meant to help you really kind of move your book around in its many different kind of moving parts. Because oftentimes what happens is, like you were talking about, like writing in a very linear way, and many people do. And then you realize that, like, chapter 7 doesn't really belong here. It should actually be chapter 3. And then you're working in a Word document or Pages, and it's just a cumbersome pain to grab an entire chapter, cut it, and then repaste it, because sometimes you missed a sentence, or sometimes you accidentally deleted something, and it turns into this whole kind of just monster of a process. And Scrivener allows you to physically just drag and drop files, and it's just it's a beautiful thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of the reason for it. And that's one of the reasons why I love the program, because you can kind of go where the inspiration is taking you, rather than opening up the document. You're looking at the same first page again. And what happens is that the first page gets all the attention, and then it's the last chapter that gets no love, because you never get there, because you're constantly held up in that first chapter. It's a very common problem, I think.
Something else that helped me identify too is, this particular subject that I'm writing about, we're looking at different aspects of it, but some of these stories that we're telling apply to different topics. For example, if you want to talk about gender confusion, or you want to talk about bullying, or you want to talk about how to deal with your community or relationships with straight folks, these issues exist in many different chapters. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be repetitive, and you want to tell a particular story where it has its most impact. And that has also helped by breaking it apart. It's like, I can now see that, I'm explaining the same thing in chapter 2 that I'm explaining in chapter 5. They already get it. Mm-hmm. Where is this best placed? And I could clump those ideas together, and very quickly. And visually I can see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I feel like this is such a great tip because I do think the majority of people look at having to write in a very linear process. And I think that when they kind of employ what you're talking about, life can be so much easier. In the writing process itself, I say this often, like it doesn't have to be painful, but I think that there's just a lot of beliefs that we bring to the table that kind of inherently make it a painful process when that doesn't have to be the reality of it at all. So if someone is listening to us and they're like, I'm interested in hearing more about Jane, or I am interested in hearing more about her book, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Probably at janeaswitzer.com.
And can you spell your last name?
Yes, it's Switzer. And Jane is spelled Jane, middle initial A, Switzer.com.
Perfect.
Jane at janeaswitzer.com.
Beautiful. Okay, awesome. So I highly encourage anyone who is interested to certainly reach out and talk to Jane if there's something that's helpful. And if you are you're still in it with us at day 29 of NaNoWriMo, if you are looking for more resources or information, you can text the word publish to the number 345345. That will get you our Getting Started for Authors Blueprint. And basically, it's just a guide that has just tips and tricks and kind of resources around making the writing process less painful for you, as well as kind of marketing or it's a whole bunch of tips. So you can text publish to 345345 and get that information. And then additionally, if you want to connect with me, you can go to publishyourpurposepress.com. I know that's a tongue twister, but Publish Your Purpose Press. And my personal calendar is at meetwithjen with 2 N's, JENN.com. And you can schedule time to talk to me directly, and I will happily answer any question that you might have around the publishing process and see if perhaps we are the right fit. And that is all I have. Tomorrow, I will be here for the last day of this, day 30. I will have, hopefully, I have a guest lined up for tomorrow. Hopefully, everything works out. And if not, I will see you there regardless to kind of conclude our last 30 days. Thank you so much, Jane, for joining me today. It's really awesome to have you. I can't wait for your book to come out at a later date and time. And when it does, we'll make sure that it is promoted on the PYP page.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.